You may be seated once again. I have a personal disclaimer. I may not sing like angels today because I've had a cough that I've shared with some of my children. And I will speak before you and sing before you anyway. So, in here it says, my sermon is called, "You're So Vain You Probably This Sermon's About You." And I made a little, there's a change to the title of my sermon, a little addition. It's actually, "You're So Vain You Probably Think This Sermon's About You," or "Why God Doesn't Matter." The disclaimer is also, any resemblance to persons living or dead is intentional. Some people have said, "Wow, how can you find the time to give a sermon? You have all these children. My twins are 3 and the baby's 4 months old." And really, it's actually quite nice for me. The whole room is listening to me right now. What a treat! So what is vanity? First, let's just say, what is it? There is probably a thing in your bathroom called a vanity. It's a piece of furniture, right? That's actually the way that the word is usually used these days. People don't talk much about vanity. And this sermon is part of a series that I've been doing about what can religious words that you use can get afraid of, or atheists that there are people who can't even walk in the door of here because it's too churchy, and they don't want anybody to do anything churchy to them. So they stop thinking about these words like vanity or idolatry, the ideas of heaven and hell, because it's too traumatic for them. And I say, why leave these words to other people? We can own them. It's our language. We choose what's in our dictionary. And I think vanity is something worth looking at. Usually we think of vanity as, I'm proud of how I look. And that's a basic idea. And it sort of has a tacky sort of feel. And we don't want it. But we don't go very far with it. We could say that, some people say that pride is what I think of myself, and vanity is what I think you think of me. And really these are two sides of the same mirror. And I think they are. And I think I don't want them. Because there's an opposite, which is shame. And I have no time in my life for shame. There are too many good things to do. Usually we think of vanity as being about how great someone thinks they look or are. But in the sense I'm using it, it can also mean that I'm worse than other people. It's either I'm better or I'm worse. But I'm more something than other people are. An example that someone might say to themselves is, "Oh, my baby's crawling faster than other people's babies crawl." "Oh, my car is a nicer car than other people have." Or, "My arguments are righter than other people's arguments." "My life is the hardest life that anyone's ever had." That one, my friends, is a killer. I ain't kidding. The original meaning of the word vanity, the famous quote is, "Vanity, vanity, all is vanity." And that doesn't mean I look so good, it means in vain. Like no matter how we tried, all our efforts were in vain. It's no use. Youthful beauty fades. Cars, arguments, parents, babies, nothing lasts. And it's just no use being vain about any of it. It's no use being vain about my looks or my talents or my hardships, but it is fine to look at myself honestly and notice real things about myself. It's okay to be pleased about pleasant things about myself. And it's okay to be sad about sad things. It's okay to be grateful for lucky things and disappointed at unlucky things. And then we do the next right thing. No matter what, whether we're the best or the worst, the thing to do is the next right thing. It might be simple to say what it is and hard to do. It might be hard to figure out what the next thing is to do. Maybe the next right thing is to figure out what's the next thing to do. Maybe the next right thing to do is to plan what we're going to do in the future. For some people, the next right thing might be to put on fancy makeup and fancy clothes, and that is not vanity. That's just fancy. Okay, now let's talk about why God doesn't matter. I'm not going to talk about whether God's real or not. People can talk about that. If you want to talk about that later, I'd be happy to talk to you. But this is not about if God is real or God is not real. It's about why it doesn't matter. This is a true story. Some of you may be familiar with it, some of you may not. Once upon a time, there was a family, and the parents went away for a special weekend together. And the teenager, we'll call him teenager, was left alone in the house. And do you know what he did? He did. He had a party. He planned a fun party where lots of people would come and they would have a wild time, and then they would clean up and they would always remember their fun time. Well, the party was planned and the cupboards were taped shut and the paintings were off the wall. Intoxicating substances were procured and the rules were written down on a big sign. There were a number of rules, 10 of them. It seems like 10 rules is the usual number. They included, but were not limited to, no drunk driving, no puking, and my favorite one is no teenagers' room. Well, in the days of Twitter, things are speeded up and intense. The party was announced, and then it was retweeted. Many people came. Many people came. And intoxication commenced immediately. The parents on vacation called the other parents that teenager was supposed to be staying with and said, "How are teenagers?" And the other parent said, "I thought they were at your house." An investigation was made by a representative of the parents. The police were called. The whole thing, from start to finish, was not more than an hour. Except for the kids, when the police came that scattered into the woods, who were stumbling around in the woods drunk, and they found the farmer's electric fence that was right there. We're only surmising from the damage done later. Poor kids. After the party, the sign of the rules was still there. Party goers gone. But one of them had crossed out the rule that said no teenagers room. And the sign said no restricted areas. He thought, and his friends thought, that they could prepare for a party and it would be fun. I don't know if he learned. I hope he learned. I hope all the other people learned, maybe, maybe not, that you don't invite that beast into your house. That beast is what they call a power greater than yourself. So when I say God doesn't matter, what I really mean, it's kind of a way to get people's attention, I know. It's a bold statement. in a world of theists and atheists. But the fact is, everyone, I think, can agree, if they look at the real facts, that somewhere out there is a power greater than yourself. I have many things are powers greater than me. Sometimes it's a 3-year-old child. Sometimes it's 2 3-year-old children working together. But I mean, if you don't have a pair of twin 3-year-olds, the ocean. Have somebody drop you in the middle of the ocean and leave you alone for a couple of days, and then decide if there's a power greater than yourself out there. Does it matter if God made it that way, or if it just happened? It doesn't matter to me. It's just the way it is. Does it matter if God tells you the apocalypse is coming? Or if the scientists tell you that someday the sun will move to the next phase of its life as a star, and it will expand to a size that includes the Earth and its orbit? Don't worry, it's not going to happen soon. But it will. It will. It's still in vain. Time for a joke. I'm using my phone. I didn't print everything out. I'm being very eco-friendly, but we're not entirely sure if it's going to work, so this is a test of the system. I think it's going to work. Okay, 3 guys got into a car crash and they all died. One of the benefits, by the way, of religion is that we can start a joke this way. Okay, 3 guys got into a car crash and they all died. And they all get up to heaven and they meet St. Peter at the gates, and St. Peter says, okay, everybody come in, but whatever you do, don't step on a duck. The gates open and there's ducks everywhere, all over the floor, on the tables and the chairs, and the first guy walks in and accidentally steps on a duck, and St. Peter comes along and handcuffs him to the ugliest woman in all the world and says, now you must stay handcuffed for all eternity. And the other 2 guys see this and they do their best to avoid the ducks. The second guy goes months and months without stepping on any duck, and then one morning he wakes up, and as he's getting out of bed, he steps on 2 ducks. St. Peter comes over and handcuffs him to the most atrocious looking and smelling woman and says, now you must stay handcuffed to each other for all eternity. Now the third guy goes years and years without stepping on a duck. He's very careful. And then one day, St. Peter comes along and handcuffs him to the most beautiful woman he's ever seen. St. Peter says, now you must stay handcuffed to each other for all eternity. And the guy happily says, oh my God, what have I done to deserve this? And the woman says, I don't know what you did, but I stepped on a duck. I have to stick that in there because this stuff is heavy, man. Okay. I have to tell you something. There are young men and women. Some people would call them boys and girls, but since they're past the age of puberty, I'm going to call them young men and women. And they use photo sharing apps. You know about this. You can post a picture, and there it is, and you can stick words on it. And our culture is very vain about appearances. And it's not very realistic. Many people do not know what real naked people look like. They don't see real naked people, and they have a different idea that they get from movies or magazines or photo sharing apps about what bodies ought to look like. Except they see themselves in the mirror, and it gets distorted. And some people say that in other cultures where women are more modest, that is worse than our culture. And I'm not going to say it's better or worse, but I'm going to tell you a friend of mine has lived in Turkey for a while, and she talks about these baths that they have. Now the women are covered. It's polite for women to keep their beautiful selves covered because they're so beautiful. They're so beautiful. Men might be in danger if they could see, so they cover up. But in the baths, only women go. And they get naked, and it's steamy, and they brush each other's skin, and I bet they brush each other's hair, and they scrub, and they are just all naked, all ages of women, all naked together, just hanging out, and they have a great time. And I wonder if the women that live in these places grow up from girls with a realistic idea about what a naked body looks like. One benefit is the realistic body image, and another one is exfoliation. Can we start this here? And now I want to tell you about a gross word that I won't say. Like I said, we get to choose what's in our dictionary. There are some things that are not in my dictionary. I'm going to share this one with you, but I will just tell you it's one I don't use. It's kind of like the N-word, you know, like I just don't need to say that. There's no reason to say it. And some people use these powerful words that are still just words, they're just sounds, but they use them to describe themselves in a way of taking power away from the word. And it happens with the N-word and also with this word that I'm going to share with you. And if they want to do that, that's okay. But I will never. The word is ratchet. I don't know if any of you have heard it used in its common, everyday, youthful way. Maybe it's not something that has reached up all the way into the generations, but it's coming down. It's a word that is sometimes used casually, and I think a lot of the people who use it casually do not realize where it came from. It's a kind of a wrench, if you know what a ratchet wrench is. And it's a tool that people use to get something off. It's a tool to use. So the joke is, you use it to get something off. The shade of the meaning is that the person who's being talked about and described with this word thinks they are attractive and smart, but they're an object to be used to get something off. That is against my religion. And it doesn't matter if I believe in God or not, the religion that I choose believes in the inherent worth and dignity of every person, and no person is an object. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Clue. It's a very silly movie, a movie based on a board game, but there's a character, Mrs. White, who is the husband killer, and that's her character, and she says, "Husbands should be like Kleenex, soft, strong, and disposable." I don't think she was a Unitarian Universalist. It may be sort of funny when Mrs. White says it, but when a real person says it about a real person, to me that is only sad and, more important, wrong. I don't believe in the inherent worth and dignity of each person because God wrote it in a book. I believe it because you have taught me and continue to teach me. All of you and your children. I feel that light inside of myself because I look for it. And I look for it when I meet another person in person.